Hello, everyone. Price Focus. As Nottingham Forest lose 2-1 to Fulham when in truth they should have been beaten by more. Joining to discuss the game in full this evening is, first of all, Chris from Forest All Over. Chris, good evening. How are you doing?
Yeah, not great. Wasn't the greatest performance today. So yeah, very very disappointed with it. But look, we march on, weather the storm. Can't get too down with the downs and too highs with the highs. So yeah, but I'm devastated. But yeah, we'll be all right.
Oh, that's an outstanding parade of cliches to start with. That's good. Football cliches straight away. We should send that to our podcast. Well, we'll get into that. We can say plenty, hopefully. Lewis McGugan, how you doing?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Fine, thank you.
Good. That's a more direct answer. We like that. Chris, you can start us off with some more general thoughts on the game. What did you make of it in general before we get into some specifics?
Fulham overran us in the midfield. They were first every ball. They won the 50-50s. Felt like they had more energy. I think, the small positives we can take. Obviously, his performance was brilliant, all things considered. And Chris Wood took that chance that we had first half. And I thought Chris Wood was very good today, not just because of the goal. There was other signs of positivity with him. But I just felt like Fulham had our number. I felt like Silva kind of maybe outsmarted or outfoxed Nuno a little bit, or maybe he just did his job and strategically set up really well. But that was the takeaway for me. Was about 20-25 minutes in, I was thinking, gosh, Fulham are kind of all over us here, and everything they seem to do seems to be working, and it just seemed to be one of those days.
Yeah, it was. I don't normally ask the same question twice at the start, but what do you make of it in general, Lewis, before we get into more specifics?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with pretty much what Chris has said. I think that if you look at the game overall, I don't think we ever got going really. I think like I said, the goal come against the run of play and kind of gave us a little bit of a lifeline, but we still didn't really kind of act upon it and press on it. And for large parts of the game, Fulham were the better team. So I think it was a fair result, and probably if it wasn't for Sels, the scoreline could have been a little bit greater in Fulham's favour.
I know it's not easy being a manager, and as you know, and I don't like to be overly critical, but I feel like today, I've not been critical of Nuno all season, I think, apart from Fulham at home, actually. Maybe it's a Fulham thing, I don't know. I felt like those changes should have been made at half-time today, so in shape, and probably Danilo as well. And obviously he takes Danilo off right after the goal, when I don't think Danilo's had a good part in it, and it wasn't a good day for Danilo. We'll get into that specifically, but am I being harsh on Nuno there, Lewis? Can you see his thinking in not making those changes sooner when we got back into it at 1-1?
Yeah, I think as a manager, you're always under the spotlight of making decisions, and some people will agree, some people will disagree. So the kind of you being a manager, you always know that you're going to get critics. So I look at it and I think, in terms of the time of the substitutions, could he potentially change it at half time? I think, again, sometimes as a manager, you think to yourself, well, if I change it at half time, it means that I've got it wrong. And sometimes managers kind of go, right, let me give them 10, 15 minutes. He mentions that half time. He'll say to the players that they've got 10, 15 minutes to change it. And if they haven't, then he'll start making changes. So listen, sometimes you can make a substitution and a decision at half time, and it can have a big reaction. And sometimes you can do it, and it can make more trouble, more uncertainty around the team going out to the second half. So I think, like we said before, that the players have been fantastic for him, and they've definitely overachieved in terms of the contributions all season. So I think when it comes down to that, he's always going to go for the favour of giving these players the benefit of that to kind of go and change that kind of momentum. But unfortunately, it didn't happen, and then he decided to make the substitutions when he did.
I guess, Chris, Sangare must have been coming on before then. I didn't see if he was. I can't believe bad timing. I don't know. But what's your take on that? Because it's not the first time. Liverpool scored just as I think Nuno was going to make a change. And then, he's done it again today. But just on the general point of making changes sooner, I think you think he should have. We were in WhatsApp saying he should have made change something at half time. So I guess you think he should have done it.
Yeah, I do. I think the Hudson-Odoi change, I understand why that was later, just because he's just coming back from injury at the same time. You got to kind of look at the bigger picture with that specifically, because he might not have been ready for 45 minutes, or maybe Nuno had already planned to bring him on in sort of 65 or whenever he did, which did kind of change the game. As the Sangare change, I felt should have come sooner. Danilo, you and I were speaking in WhatsApp talking about how he was getting overrun in midfield. A lot of his touches were not perfect. His ball pace was a little bit slow. He just seemed a little rusty, which is fair enough. He's come back from a big injury. And I think the Wood goal kind of gave us a bit of a false sense of security about coming into half-time. I reckon if we didn't get that goal, I honestly do think Nuno might have changed things half-time. Maybe he wouldn't have, but I honestly think if we're 1-0 down, we've looked like we've not threatened at all, and we don't get a goal, and we go into half-time, I think Nuno probably thinks, actually, I'll just shake things up straight away. And then we get that goal, and he probably thinks, you know what? Let's hold fire for a bit, which lulled us into that false sense of security, I reckon. And then second half, first 10, 15, we weren't actually that bad. Williams was starting to do better against Traore down that right-hand side, or Williams' left-hand side. But I think we were lulled into a false sense of security at 1-1 at half-time, and Nuno thought, right, I've got 10 minutes, 15 minutes to hold fire here. But yeah, the Sangare change for me probably should have happened a lot sooner and at half-time, because they were beating us all over the park first half. We just got a goal against the run of play.
Yeah, I might as well stick on this midfield thing while we're on it. And I don't want it to sound like Danilo was the only player who had a bad game, because I thought lots of players did. Probably only, we'll come on to who did have a good game. It's probably only 3 or 4, but I wanted to stick on Danilo because I remember, Lewis, you said last time you were on, you come back from a bad injury, you get through a game or two on adrenaline, and then it can catch you up. Is that a factor today? Because Fulham's midfield were good, they were at it. Was that a factor in Danilo suffering a bit?
Yeah, potentially, but I also think in terms of Fulham tactics, the way they played, I think a lot of times Danilo was covering big areas. He was having to try and cover big areas. I think from a tactical point of view, especially first off, what they did, we all know the threat that Robinson has down the left hand side. I felt that the fullbacks, both Fulham fullbacks, went high, which allowed Toure and Iwobi to stay high, which then pinned back our wing backs, which then had to make Anderson, if you've seen a lot of the time in the first half, Anderson and Gibbs White were playing as kind of right and left midfielder in terms of in a 4-4-2. And that's because they have to now go out and get that ball into the fullback. If you look at the left-hand side, because Robinson's so effective, it allowed Iwobi to come in and make an extra man with Smith Rowe in kind of that 2-10s. And that is where Danilo then gets isolated. And what they're trying to do, which again happened, is when they look and Danilo gets isolated, the only people that can come out of their slots is Murillo and Morata. And that's what then they try and do, and then look for them little gaps in behind. So I think from a tactical point of view, Fulham got it spot on, and it worked for them. And I think every time the ball kind of changed transition and we regained the ball, we didn't really have a lot of options. Chris was our furthest man forward, kind of inside our own half. So in terms of our threat, which is kind of on that counter where we go and set off from there, we just couldn't get out. And unfortunately, we just got camped in deeper and deeper and deeper. And then it really becomes a back five. Then it becomes a midfield three, which spread over a vast, a big area across the pitch. And you just can't cover them. You just can't cover them yards. And again, Danilo coming back. And we've always said about him into this role, it's not a role that we kind of thought that he'd play. And there's still kind of the jury out on that role. Can he be disciplined, and can he have that understanding of staying in them slots? And against the better teams, they'll find out the weaknesses. And I think potentially today, that midfield three was just probably a bit too spread out, which causes a lot of problems.
So I'll put this in the notes. Is this position alongside Anderson a bit of a sudden problem? Because Yates and Dominguez have done well. Danilo comes back. You've got Sangare. You've got 4 options there. Is there a danger of chopping and changing? Would you stick with one of them, Lewis? Or does Nuno have to give one of them a run in the team, do you think?
I think, again, if we look at Yates has come out of the team really, and even when it's kind of that first change, he doesn't seem to be that first change. So obviously Nuno's looked at and seen something else. I think Sangara's come back in and got minutes. I think we do look better, and I'm sure we'll go on it when we changed formation. Hudson-Odoi came on. I just think that's kind of our formation. I think it allows the midfield, especially the 2-10, or the 2-8s, which is Morgan and Anderson, to stay a bit closer in, a bit more narrow. And we've got that kind of width outside. I think Alanga straight away looked totally more at home on that wide area. I know we've used him a kind of that free role, but again, I think we have to be on top. I think we have to be on that front foot when that works, and I don't think that was today. So I think moving forward, we look better in that kind of 4-2. Well, it's like a 4-1 really, 4-1-2, and then the 3 up front. So I think we look better in that formation, and I think it suits our players better with the Anderson and Gibbs White. And I think that's recently where a lot of the good plays come from. Again, Hudson-Odoi's fitness, did that make that was going to make a difference in terms of the selection? And I think if our 2 wingers are available and fit, I think we will revert back to that formation. It's just now who plays that deep one. We have seen Danilo play there against Brighton. Sangara obviously is trying to get back, and Nuno's obviously trying to get him back into the team. Yates at the minute doesn't look quite involved. And Dominguez, I don't think, can play that deep one on his own. But again, we'll wait and see what we do at Newcastle.
Yeah, good debate, and we'll come on Newcastle, and we'll come on to that change in this game where we did look a lot better. Going back to the beginning of the game, Chris, early warning signs for you. Did we start the game slowly? I mean, I suppose I'm thinking of the Jimenez header. Were you a bit worried there when that went flashing wide?
Definitely. I was worried just based on sort of the style of play Fulham were bringing to the table in terms of like doubling up, overlapping on the outside, finding pockets of space, drawing in 2 defenders and then pulling it back for a whipped cross in, or Traore going around the outside and chipping it over across. They always seem to have late runners coming into the box. Lukic, even Iwobi at times, and then Jimenez causing all sorts of problems. It felt like their strategy, I mean, they scored 2 headers. Their strategy was literally to sort of stick balls in the box and cause us problems. And they did. And that was my worry, you know, when Traore had a couple of those moments on the outside. And that Jimenez shot, that header I thought was in, actually, the one you're referring to. I thought it was in the back of the net. And I thought, oh, gosh, are they going to do this all day? And they kind of did. And then eventually they got the goal, which I think Morato probably could have been positioning a bit better for. I don't think he had a great game today, Morato, on a side note. But yeah, it was definitely a warning sign, and Fulham just kept it up. Then they just kept rinse and repeat down the left hand side with Iwobi and Robinson overlapping, or down the right hand side with Traore trying to cause problems, and I think maybe Lukic or someone else stepping back in to whip the balls in, and then just late runners. And it was just really simple strategy and very smart because it just kept working. And the fact that we had 3 defenders who've done well so far all season from set pieces or clearing headers in terms of Milenkovic, Morato, Murillo. And we couldn't stop it. It just showed you that Silva had got his tactics spot on and his strategy spot on. But yeah, I was really concerned when that first happened. And then obviously we'll probably get to the goal now where they ddid score one of those headers.
Yeah, we'll get to the goal next, obviously, because it leads into it nicely. Just before that, a word for the Trent navigation and a reminder, you can order via Uber Eats now from the Big Shed Pizza Kitchen. There's also a midweek pizza offer. All pizzas are £8.50. Any pizza with a pepperoni is only £12. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, and Tuesdays too if the Champions League is on. So do check all that out. The first goal then, Lewis, what was your take on it? Smith Rowe ghosts in, probably the you'd expect to ghost in because he doesn't have that reputation. But where did we go wrong there?
Yeah, I think when the group will look back at it over the next coming days, I think they'll be really disappointed with it. I think when you play a back 3, especially 3 centre halves that are all good in the air, you always hope to have that extra man, and you should have that extra man when you're defending from wide areas. And again, he's just snuck in back behind the kind of first centre half in front of Aina, and he's got in. So I think from a defensive point of view, somebody of Smith Rowe, you're not really kind of looking at an aerial prowess from him. So for him to get in there in between defenders, where if you probably look at it in the still picture, we've got a lot of bodies around there. So it's disappointing and something that they'll definitely look at.
Yeah, Morato didn't have a great really, unfortunately. But then, like I say, a lot of players didn't, and Aina probably for both goals as well. We'll come on to the second goal. It becomes almost not quite the Matz Sels show against Liverpool, Chris, but over the course, spread out a bit longer of the game. I mean, he was just about as good as that, wasn't he? The first save that I've noted down was the one he made from Jimenez. We sort of did it just pitch in front of him a little bit. I can't quite recall, but that was a really good save, wasn't it?
Yeah, it bounced just in front of him. Really difficult one to stretch out to. Kind of similar, but to I think it was the Gakpo effort that Liverpool had, and it just Sels made some really good saves today. If it wasn't for him, we would have been 2 or 3 down at half time. I know Iwobi's little flick was a tame effort, but if Sels positionally is stepping to the right there, could have maybe caused him problems. And then there was a couple other really smart saves from Sels. The only thing Sels couldn't really do is deal with some of the headers, and that's not his fault at all. It was defending. Sels was brilliant today. Really, really good. I know we'll probably mention second half. I don't want to skip ahead, but there was a really good save he made. Was it from Lukic? I can't remember.
Yeah, that was before the goal, yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought, gosh, this Sels is keeping us in it. Even there was later on, Traore had a crack, and I think Willian late let the ball off, and look, they'd hit it straight down the middle, but Sels made a couple of really good smart saves, had his positioning right. I think he was brilliant today again. He didn't panic. Towards the back end of the first half, there's a really notable point where he's like winding down the clock on a free kick as well to get us to half time so that we can maybe change things up or just reassess. So just manages games really well and makes some really, really good saves. He will probably be the main contender for man of the match today, I imagine.
I think so. I don't think that's a spoiler alert. Not for me anyway. So we were on the back foot, Lewis. Suddenly out of nowhere, genuinely out of nowhere, I think we get back into it. Morgan, it's a pass, obviously, but it's a pretty hopeful one. Talk us through how well Chris Wood does from there.
Yeah, great finish. And I kind of, when it slows down, I think potentially taking it again, great finish. And that's where we've been a lot of the time all season, that we've got them chances and we've been clinical. And again, like I said at the start of the show, it was against run of play and it gave us a bit of a lifeline and it kind of let us go in at half time. Allowed us to reset, but then I think that we want to kind of come out and try and be on the front foot and show our initiative, but we didn't quite do it, unfortunately. But as that goal, then great finish by a striker that has been brilliant this season.
This is going to sound a stupid question. Is it a good thing that we're so ruthless in the sense that we don't? Like some of these games, we've not created a ton of chances. It's difficult to go away, but even home games like Southampton at home, first half, I'm thinking of, our creation isn't outstanding. Does Wood? I mean, he's certainly papered over a few cracks today, I guess, hasn't he? But is that a stupid way of looking at it because we're scoring goals and it doesn't really matter how they come?
Yeah, and I think anyone that's connected to football would rather, if it be here, ruthless. I'll take that. We're not really getting many chances, but we go and score goals. I'll take that kind of every game, really. Yes, sometimes they're gonna go against you, potentially not go your way. But I just feel like we're in that kind of the thought process for a lot of the season, and I think that's what helps is that we feel that when we can go into games that we can go and score, and even if we're under the cosh, even if we're not really on top of the game, we still know that we can score goals. And as a footballer, and as a player, and as a manager, and as a group of people, and also fans, that's a good place to be. It's a good place to be that we know we don't have to be quite at the top of our game to go and score goals.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. So Chris, we don't make any change at half time, which I was surprised by. But we did start the second half. Did we start the second half better? I think we did, didn't we?
Yeah, definitely we did. Like I said earlier, I think Williams started to get the better of Traore, or just at least stay with him a little bit more. We just seemed to have a bit more energy. I think we did all right. First sort of 10 minutes or so of the second half before the goal. But I don't know. It's really easy to sit here and say, I mean, before the game, I think you and I would have agreed that the strategy going into the game was the exact right strategy to employ. But I suppose once you see your midfield getting overrun like it was, and you see the other team strategy working first half, you have to think, right, we've got to change it. And I think at halftime we were all screaming out for that. And I know, yeah, it's just frustrating because the moment Fulham got a foothold in the game, they're the kind of team that don't mind playing with the ball, don't mind keeping a bit of possession. You know, that the moment we allow them to do that, we just got caught out, and it just didn't seem to work. And, you know, as we'll come on to, as soon as we brought Callum Hudson-Odoi on, the game completely changed. The momentum swung. I know Fulham were probably sitting back a little, looking to get us on the counter then, but still, I just felt like even though that first 5-10 minutes of the second half looked positive and the players looked more alert, Fulham still looked really dangerous kind of every time they were getting forward, and we just didn't. We felt isolated up top with Alanga running off Wood, and that was kind of the only frustration for me, even though, yeah, first 10-15 minutes of the second half, we looked all right. I still think we should have changed at halftime.
Yeah, I'd be a massive hypocrite if I said we should have started with a different team, because that was the team I wanted to start with, except for Hudson-Odoi playing instead of Danilo if he was fit. So I guess he wasn't. Maybe he was. I don't know. But that shape was what I wanted. So, yeah, I can't complain about that. The second goal then, Lewis, do we have to do better to stop the first shot? I feel like I'm digging Danilo out, but he got done pretty all ends up. And then the corner comes in, and then Danilo again doesn't really pick up Jimenez. And then is Aylmer at fault as well? Where was that a bit of a stinker to concede?
Yeah, I think the corner from a set piece. I think again, this is why so many people continue to have the discussion of zonal and man marking. I think again, people prefer different systems and different ways of doing it. But if you looked at, we were zonal, and I think from there, if you look where Jimenez was, you look at potentially, is it Chris Wood, is it Aina, and it's that both, when you normally concede, they both turn around, look at each other like, is it your man, is it my man? And that's what happens a lot of time when you have that zonal marking. When you have man to man, it's literally, that's your job. You're kind of tight, you're against bodies, and you know that, listen, you can't let your man beat you. So I think again, both goals was disappointing, but I don't think probably Wood or Aina they're not doing either job really, and he's got in off that kind of second ball, which is always that yes, we always try and win first contact, but so many goals come from that second phase, and unfortunately we were sleeping a little bit, and we're not picked up, and they've capitalised.
Do you think we dropped off from set pieces defensively? We looked a lot stronger at the start of the season, or maybe we didn't because we were such a horror show last season. I don't know. Have we got worse defending set pieces as the season's gone on, Lewis, or not?
I wouldn't say so. I think set pieces are kind of that thing that's you could go months and think that you really, you score from every set piece. You don't feel like you concede, but in that, if you probably dissected it and stripped it down, you've got a little bit of luck in certain ways, and little bits have gone your way, and that sometimes happens. And kind of on the flip side of that, you can get punished for every little mistake you make in that set piece, and it can sometimes make it bigger than what it is. But the reality is, you just got a little bit unfortunate. The luck's gone against you, and that happens in football. And that's, for me, set pieces are like that. Like I said, it's that first contact. You always try and want to win that first contact. But it's that second phase, and sometimes that second phase go with you, where it lands to your man, kind of in the box, for us and against us. And sometimes you just feel like you're going for that moment where every time it drops to their man, and they seem to score, and you can feel like the world's against you a bit. So I don't think we should get carried away with that and think that we've really dropped off massively set pieces. Sometimes, unfortunately, things just go against you.
Yeah, I think the Premier League, looking at this comment from Barry, reminding us that we lost 5-0 at Fulham last season. Obviously, we lost 1-0 at home to them this season. If the Premier League didn't have Fulham and Bournemouth in, it'd be a lot better place, I'm starting to think, because they, apart from that one home game where we were brilliant, we basically got destroyed by Fulham and Bournemouth every game. So let's forget about them. Did you want to come in there, Chris, before?
Yeah, it was just more on the set piece thing. I think Lewis is bang on. He kind of finished off the point that I was going to get. We don't need to panic about it. Of course, it feels like it's happening because we've conceded from set pieces the last few games. And obviously we conceded from set pieces even against Exeter midweek, or second phase set piece. But I don't think it's something we need to panic about. I think Fulham had about 8 or 9 corners today. Eventually, one of them will potentially work out because they have an aerial threat. There was a point in the game where I saw at the end Muniz, Bassi, and Anderson all standing next to each other having a chat, and I thought, oh geez, actually these guys are a threat from set pieces. You know, they have really good headers of the ball. Jimenez is a massive aerial threat as well. So, you know, that was their strategy. And, you know, they only scored one from a set piece. Obviously, it's slightly worrying because they scored 2 headers today. But, you know, they did have more of an aerial threat than I might have first thought. And I feel like, yes, we've conceded a few the last few weeks, but it's not the end of the world, you know?
No, I think so. So we make that change, 67 minutes. Hudson-Odoi for Morato. I felt like we looked a lot brighter immediately, Lewis. Does Hudson-Odoi come straight back into your team? Now, even Newcastle away, we'll get onto it, but Newcastle away on paper is a tough game. We think, oh, maybe we play a 3, but do you go back to that 4-2-3-1 or whatever it is that you mentioned and play Hudson-Odoi even at St James's Park?
Again, it's a big question to see what the manager would do. And you look at how today went. Did it obviously didn't go to plan? Is that going to change his thinking? Because he would already be thinking of kind of about Newcastle in terms of potentially how that looks like. But again, it will be how today went. So I think if he's fit, I think he plays. I think he gives us that outlet, and I think if we have that outlet on both flanks, I think it helps us as a team. I think it opens up some more areas when we get the ball inside, allows Morgan and Anderson to go and pick up them pockets. But again, it will be how he is fitness wise in terms of speaking to the staff and the medical staff and seeing that if that's a possibility for him to go from the start. But I'm guaranteed and 100% sure that he would definitely be in the manager's thoughts to start the game.
Was he a bit unlucky, Lewis, with that? He had probably, I don't think we had many chances to score. He had the one I can think of. Was he a bit unlucky with that one where you know what he's trying to do, and sometimes, you know, the defender takes up a good position and he actually, Castagna did quite a good job in the end there.
Yeah, and potentially there's that kind of day a bit really. Just we just didn't, you know what I mean, we've seen it before, but we just didn't quite have that cutting edge again. But he's coming back and he's been out, so he'll be better for them for the minute. And I think we have to look at it where we are. And I know that when the squad go away and when you come back from it, it's always, everyone's always looking at them results, because it's like, yeah, you've had a week away. Has that been a good week? Has that helped the group? And listen, no doubt for the rest of the season, that week would have helped the group in so many ways. But if we look at the Cup and we look at that game, that didn't go to plan. There was a lot of players that potentially wouldn't have probably come on and played minutes in that game that didn't have to do that, which then changes the training schedule for the rest of the weeks, which then goes into the weekend. So all these things, unfortunately, they do have a knock-on effect. That's how it happens. And again, the manager's always changing with his staff daily how that works. And Nuno could have had potentially a different formation or personnel today, but again, maybe a few things in a week might have changed that. We don't know. But I think if we look at it where we are, we had a chance to get away as a group, and I think that will be beneficial for now, seeing us through to the end of the season. Again, since we've come back in terms of the cup game, in terms of today, yes, it hasn't quite gone to plan, but again, we're in a fantastic position. Teams around us, you look at Chelsea last night, teams around us aren't pulling away. We've got it in our own hands, which I'm sure as fans, if we get that opportunity of a little run in to the season being in our hands, we would have taken it. So we're where we are today. Then we're going to kind of talk about Newcastle, and they had their result today, so they're a bit up and down, and hopefully we go there with confidence, because they'll be worried about us. They know that what we can produce. And I think, again, we've just got to concentrate now on the next game. And we're going to have a lot more downs now until the end of the season. That will happen. That's what football is, especially at the highest level. But again, we're in a great position. We've got some great home games coming up, which are going to be a great atmosphere. And if we can then get some results there, change that momentum straight away. We're back in the driver's seat, and I look at it from where we are. There's no other team. You look at Liverpool. Yes, Arsenal got results today, but there's a lot going on in their squad. I think we're in a really good place for a team that we never thought that this would be a position we're in. Again, remember we got to keep enjoying it, enjoying the ride, and hopefully the players will have that reset button, dissect what's happened today, understand that they have to be better collectively as a group, and hopefully we can go to Newcastle and give a better performance.
300 people watching, which is definitely we've just lost the amount of people watching. It's a bit high, but it's good to have the 300 people that are here with us. Do us a favour and hit like if you haven't already. That'd be a great help. Just finishing up on the game, Chris. I mean, I think we should end on Matz Sels because it feels like he kept the score down. On another day, it probably is a 3, 4, even 5 defeat, isn't it? The double save in stoppage time in particular was especially good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was brilliant. The first shot was straight down his throat. I expect him to save that, but then he reacted well to get in for the next shot as well. Was there a Traore chance somewhere in that second half?
He made a good save at the back post from Traore,
Yeah, and he was just positionally really good. Definitely, he was brilliant today. I think, I think that's, at least you have a couple of players, even when you're having a really, really bad day. And we had a bad day today. I think Fulham got off 23 shots, 10 on target. They could have ran away with it. It's sometimes, I'm trying not to be too emotional with it, but it kind of felt like they did. It kind of felt like it wasn't our day all day. And at best, we were getting a draw when you're halfway through that game. But Sels, having a player like Sels, come up and play brilliant in a game like today under the circumstances is a positive. Wood, I thought, had a decent game as well, not just because of his finish. There was a couple of moments where he pinged the ball with his left foot, I think, or right foot out to Williams, and he first time pass to Elanga nearly got him away. So we had a couple of good performances in a really, really bad day. But yeah, just great to see Sels strength to strength. And obviously after midweek, his penalty heroics after Miguel had a couple of really bad moments. It's good to see your number one keeper still just keep level, keep consistent, and he'll bring that into next week, that confidence as well. He'll be ready for Newcastle if they throw the cannons in the arse out at us. So yeah, look, I thought he was class today.
Yeah, I think we're all agreed he was man of the match, certainly. Anyone else have a decent game, Lewis, for you? Try and pick out a couple of ones who did okay. I thought Anderson did all right. Anyone else for you?
Yeah, to be honest, I think looking at the game, I thought it was a tough game for most of the lads out there. I think it was one of them where, like I said, we didn't quite really get started ever. We huffed and puffed a little bit, but there wasn't. We just couldn't really get going again. As Chris said, the finish from Wood, great finish and doing what he's done all season. But I think if you look at the goalkeeper, for a lot of times this year, he's come up with saves kind of to keep us in games, to win games for us. And again, he did his best today to try and give us a chance to get something out of the game.
Just finishing up on the Newcastle game then. I don't know. Is it the kind of game you look forward to, Lewis? Big stadium, big stakes. Newcastle coming off a defeat as well. They seem to be wobbling, and they apart from playing so well in the Carabao Cup, is it one our players might fancy, even though they've had a particularly tough day today?
Yeah, of course. Like I said, it's a loss. It's a loss today, but we're third in the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? I think again we have to just realise kind of where we are in terms of when we say about the players going to be up. Like this is everything that they want to be, an opportunity to go and qualify for the Champions League. I'm sure none of the players at the start of the season thought that was potentially possible. To now have that chance every single game, they're going to go to there. Newcastle have that final now, where potentially is that some of the players looking ahead of that. Is that going to take some of them their eye off the ball? We don't know. But yeah, sometimes you go to them stadiums, everything's against you, great atmosphere, a really good fan base in terms of how passionate they are. Yeah, bring it on. I'm sure we'll travel in numbers like we always do. And again, it's a great opportunity to go and put a marker down like we have done all season.
I suppose just finishing up, Chris, with you, the next 3 games are sort of in that bracket, aren't they? In terms of an opportunity to relish a big test. Arsenal and City at home. City have been great today, but we know they've got issues. It's like Lewis said, no team at the top, apart from Liverpool, seems to have really cracked it overall. We've probably come as close as anyone. So it feels like a great opportunity as much as anything, these next 3 matches, if we really front up and play well.
Yeah, and look, these are the teams, Fulham, Newcastle, City, or Arsenal, City, whichever way around it is. They're the teams we've already lost to in the first half of the season. So stylistically, it feels like we don't match up well against them. But that doesn't really count for anything. That was a few months ago. We played Fulham today. We played badly. The last time we played against Fulham, it was sort of a 50-50 game. They got a lucky penalty and ended up winning 1-0. This game against Newcastle coming up, they will have their eyes on the cup. I think Newcastle just come off the back of 2 losses. I think Fulham in the league anyway, Fulham and City. So Fulham at home, City there. They'll be looking to bounce back because they've Liverpool in the league after us. So they'll want to try and put to bed some doubts in the league before they build towards their League Cup final. So we've got to be aware of that sort of danger next week because they'll really come out at us. But at the same time, we can put the pressure on them, make them realize that like their players won't want to get injured for that cup final, put it on them and put them under pressure and drag them into a bit of a fight the back end of the game so that they feel like they don't need to be fatigued, because I think there's a game for them and us only a few days after. So yeah, the Newcastle game's an opportunity. Arsenal, I mean, they just stuck their defensive wall up today against Leicester. They have no real strikers. 4 of their key attackers are out right now. Havertz, Saka, Martinelli, and Jesus. So all 4 of their attacking players are out. They don't really like coming to the City ground. They get nervous under the atmosphere. And City, they're up and down. One day they're going to smash Newcastle 4-0. The next day, you just don't know what City team's going to show up. They won't get through Madrid, I don't think. But if they do, then they have a game either side of us. And if not, they might be a bit down and out because they know they can't win the league. And all these various permutations and, things come into play for the next few games. We've got to look at it as an opportunity amongst a really tough run of games. And if we get out this side of it and we're still in the mix for top 5, we should be able to hold on and do it because there's some good fixtures at the back end of the season for us.
I think so. I'm looking forward to that Newcastle game. We'll discuss it more through the week, but if we can win that midfield battle, which obviously Man City must have done today, then we've got every chance. Right, just before we go, happy 40th birthday today, Greg Mitchell, celebrating until 3 o'clock. But yeah, happy 40th, Greg. He's been on Twitter trying to get the memorial fund for Sam Perkins up to 10 grand, and it was at 11 grand, I think, earlier. So I've dropped the link in the description. I think £8,000 has been raised today, which is nuts. So if anyone wants to donate to that and help Greg celebrate and donate to a good cause, then that'd be great. Lewis, any final words before we depart?
No, not from me either. Chris, anything from you?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short. But I just
think
your
podcast if you want.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had a podcast recently, an episode with Olivia, who was at the City ground for the 7-0 win. It was her first ever Forest game. She was all the way up from the Chicago area, or near Chicago anyway. So big shout out to Olivia. She was on the podcast telling her story and sharing her experience. Absolute legend. Also, Toronto Trickies. I used to live in Toronto and I was a member of them and used to hang out, but I'm obviously in Ireland now. Big shout out to them because it was their last day at their Liberty Commons pub where they used to go all the time for the last 5 years, and they're now moving. So massive shout out to the Toronto Trickies. And final thing on Forest, I think we're going to be all right. It feels terrible in the moment. I said to you, Matt, before I came on, the last time I was on a post-match where we lost was the Fulham game at the start of the season. So we've had a load of wins and draws since then, or mainly wins, and we just need to not get too down. I think this is a hard run of fixtures. It's just a fact. Newcastle away, Arsenal at home, City at home. It's going to be tough. Fulham away is a tough game for any team. We just need to get through the other side of this. We'll be okay. Weather the storm. Keep your heads up. We'll be all right. No major injuries or anything today as well. So we have a full fit team now for this run in. And yeah, just keep your chins up. We'll be all right.
Yeah, I think so. You're doing better than Lewis. Lewis's last 2 appearances have been Bournemouth away and Fulham away. So he's going to go and review the tape and assess his own performances. But if you've enjoyed this, do us a favour. Hit like, hit subscribe. Do consider channel membership or Patreon, or just a lovely 5-star review on iTunes. Lewis McGugan, thank you very much.
No problem at all.
Always a pleasure. Get well soon, Mrs. McGugan, as well, who's not very well. Chris Aylmer, thank you very much.
Thanks very much for having me. And yeah, onwards and upwards. Cliche again.
Finish on a cliche. Yeah, it's been a bad day, but we hope you have a good weekend. We shall be back on Monday for more analysis into this game and then looking ahead. And if we don't see you then, hopefully we shall see you soon.